let's now bring in Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research, Innovation and Enterprise, Professor Julian Beer, Birmingham City University. Welcome to you. How are you?
Yeah, good morning. Yes, very well, thank you. And apologies, I'm in a very sunny venue this morning.
And we're also going to hear from the CEO of Skilled Education, Rajay Naik. How are you today?
Good morning. Very well. How are you?
Good. So let's start with the same question to both of you. We'll start with you, Professor Julian Beer. What is important to you from the Enhanced Trade Partnership and the 2030 Roadmap in terms of closer education collaboration between UK and India?
Yeah, it opens up the market for us partnerships and relationships with India. We as a university are developing a campus already out in India, in the north, in the Punjab, with our partners, the Munjal Foundation and Hero. And I'm on the Strategic Trade Advisory Group for the government, and I'm the education representative for the UK. So I'm making a very strong a push for the closer ties between our two countries in terms of education. Lord Bellamori mentioned it several times, and with the new education policy in India, we're exploring that very carefully in terms of the opportunities for the UK, but also for India. It's a very important relationship.
And let's hear from you as well, Rajay Naik. What's important to you from the Enhanced Trade Partnership and the 2030 Roadmap for education?
So I think both the ETP and the roadmap are brilliant in three very specific ways. Number one, we've already seen enormous kind of two-way movement between students and between universities and researchers across both countries. I think, as the chairman of the Parliamentary Standing Committee said, it's important that that's a mutual relationship, that this is about mutuality and reciprocity in both directions. And so, we've already had a huge amount of history. We've obviously got a shared language in the English language. There's obviously a lot of kind of historic links between the two countries, but the opportunity to build on that for the future is substantial. So there's a really strong foundation. The second is opportunity for online learning in particular. I love the fact that whenever I watch an Indian cricket match now, you can't help but see Byju's and an Academy and various other extraordinary ed tech companies plastered all over the advertising. And all of those young people are going to become higher education students, or the majority of them within a short period of time. And we've got huge opportunities around lifelong learning as well. And we've already seen with the 2019 Act in India, a recognition of online education, a recognition that it's not kind of this kind of inferior thing if you don't go to the face-to-face campus. Of course, face-to-face study will continue to be the dominant route, but we're seeing a huge number of opportunities now in online pathways, and certainly the online degrees that we've run for Exeter and Aston and RMIT and UNSW and Cambridge and the LSE and a range of other universities have seen enormous demand in India in particular. And the appetite for high-level skills is only going to grow. And then the third area is that I think there's going to be a real opportunity for more shared degree programs between both countries. Opportunities where you can study the first part of your degree perhaps in India, like Julian was just saying, and then come to the UK for the final couple of years, as well as doing pathways in country, reducing accommodation costs, frankly, and those sorts of things to increase access to more students that can't travel, and then again coming to the UK. And that will happen in the other direction as well, as the Indian economy continues to flourish and continues to grow strongly, and more students want to kind of go from the UK over to South Asia. So enormous opportunities, and I think we're just at the start of a really exciting few years for the relationship.
Julian, one line from the roadmap lays out the ambition to support and promote the two-way mobility of a greater number of students, teachers, and researchers. Just hearing about that from Rajay as well. Can you say more about that from your point of view?
Yeah, it's really important. We've got a large number of partnerships over in India, and that is two-way. We can learn an awful lot from our Indian partners and vice versa. So it is that two-way mutual benefit. In terms of our students, that mobility and giving our students from Birmingham in the UK a very different world view and a very different experience from what they get in the UK is very important. So that two-way flow between both ex and students, I think, is really important. But also it's the soft power of education. And I often talk about this in other forums, for trade. So we've got a partnership, as I said, over in the Punjab, which is also a trade bridge that we're providing with our education campus for UK businesses that want to enter the Indian market. And back in Birmingham, we've got a very large project called Steam House, which is a venue for corporates and SMEs. And we're accepting quite a lot of Indian businesses into Birmingham who want access to the UK market for trade. So when we talk about education, we often forget about the other opportunities that presents in terms of the trade flow between the two countries. So yeah, it's
what kind of participate in that?
So obviously Heroes, they're one of our major partners out in India, and we're talking to a lot of tech companies. I won't mention them because we're just in the provision of signing those companies up, but they are mainly digital companies and manufacturing companies, as Lord Villamori was saying. Manufacturing is going to be a key trade link between the two countries.
Thank you. Let me just bring in Dr. Vinay one more time. I wonder if you want to reflect on what you've heard at all as education, as soft power, as a link to building trade ties as well.
Well, I think it goes without saying that the centrality of cultural relationship ultimately impacts on our diplomatic, economic, and strategic relations as well. And therefore, the more we work on the cultural agenda, I think that would be better, because humanity world over is facing the challenges which come many a times from culture as well. And therefore, we need to understand different cultures, we need to respect them, we need to develop that kind of receptive approach and gather some insights into the cultural moorings of different societies. And this is going to help not just bilateral relations, but the relations between different countries at different times.
Thank you. So Rajay, you work in online education and blended learning. You mentioned a few of the companies, the universities that you're working with. I'd love to hear some more detail on what you're doing and how it's working out. What are the key opportunities now?
Yeah, I've been at this for about 10 years now, so when it wasn't so cool as well. And so originally a few of us founded a platform called FutureLearn, which ended up supporting about 16 million students, and then KeyPath and now Skilled. And what we're seeing, I think, is a few things going on. And one thing I'd say right at the start of my answer is that a lot of this was already going on pre-COVID, right? Everyone's kind of thinking that the pandemic has kind of created this new moment for online education. The truth is that I think it's important that we look at what was going on in December of 2019, and what you'll find is that a lot of the trends that we're talking about now, and that I think a lot of you are talking about at the conference today, were already in flight in December of 2019. The move towards microcredentials, the move towards stackable programs, the move towards lifelong learning, the move towards more blended and online delivery, the move towards students being able to have hybrid programs across multiple countries, the move towards greater collaboration and a much deeper partnership between countries like India and the UK. So a lot of these things were already going on. Where the demand is greatest, without a shadow of a doubt, is in the postgraduate online market. The undergraduates will still want to come to face-to-face campuses. They'll still want that kind of rite of passage that many of us enjoyed in going to a physical campus, and that's absolutely right. But what this gives us, what this technological moment gives us, is the opportunity to extend access in ways that we could never have imagined before. Reaching students that you could not have served before, reaching students that can't afford perhaps to go to another country or to leave their family or kind of go through those sorts of experiences, and crucially, the opportunity to get into much more lifelong learning. And we're seeing a huge number of companies in both countries and in both parts of the world, in Europe and in South Asia, who need to upskill, need to reskill. We've never had a time in our economies where there's going to be such a focus on such a small number of skills. Digital marketing, AI, data analytics, those sorts of areas that are in massive demand. And so the need to embrace lifelong learning as a route to deliver those skills is absolutely crucial for both of our economies. So we're seeing a big growth in terms of online degree programs, particularly in the postgraduate space. We're seeing more online pathways and routes into different institutions, which is becoming very exciting, and we're seeing enormous demand for. And then I think we're also going to see far more shorter bursts of programs, far more micro-credentials to deliver the kind of burst of skills, the upskilling, the reskilling that economies and companies and governments are going to need in both countries.
Thank you. Dr. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe, thank you very much for joining us. I do know that you need to leave. Any final parting thought from you? I think we've lost him, but thank you so much, Dr. Vinay, for joining us. I want to ask one question, actually, Rajay. What is a micro-credential? I feel like I need some micro-credentials.
Everyone needs micro-credentials. Essentially short snippets of learning, typically about 8 to 12 weeks long. But and I won't get too technical here, but essentially a full degree program is 180 credits. That's what many of us will have gone through as we came through our traditional experience. A micro-credential will be about 10 or 15 credits, right? So a tiny, tiny chunk of a full degree program. But what it gives you is the opportunity to learn some vital skills in vital areas. And we've been delivering those in areas like digital skills, in areas like sustainability, actually, looking ahead to the COP. And I know a series of topics that you're talking about later on in the agenda. And so it enables people to study, in short, sharp bursts for a certain number of weeks, but getting a really rich experience in the areas that they need. And all of our economies need that. Education does not stop at the age of 21 or 25. It's going to be far more lifelong in the future. The commission I've been chairing in the UK on that, I think, have put forward some really powerful recommendations, number 10, and a lot of those are now being taken forward in terms of trying to devolve budgets and trying to make sure that we encourage a cultural shift, as Dr. Vinay was talking about, in terms of our mindset and in terms of the way we think about learning. But it enables you to kind of get whatever you need at whatever time it is, whether it's data analytics or digital marketing or whatever else you fancy. There's loads of programs on gardening and horticulture and various other things. You don't need presentation skills, but presentation skills, whatever it is that people want to kind of get into, it enables people to upskill and reskill.
Interesting. We all have to keep building these neural pathways for our entire lives. Let's come back to you, Julian. A lot of interest in digital skills, but also we haven't forgotten about the A in STEAM, the art, and you've got an interesting program called STEAM House that blends engineering with the more artistic side. I wonder if you could tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is something we're collaborating again with in India. And what this does is it helps the disciplines together to look at the challenges that we face. Climate change is one example of that. And it brings really different perspectives from different disciplines together to actually solve and look at those different issues and problems. And that brings very different results from what you would traditionally get if you've got a bunch of chemists, for instance, looking at one subject area. If you add in the creatives and engineers alongside chemists, they come up with very different solutions than you would have seen if it's discipline specific. And this for our students is really important, because when they get into the real world, they get into the world of work, they'll be working in interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary teams. And this gives our students a real sense of what they will be encountering when they get out into the world of work. And we've been collaborating with a number of agencies and employers, but also civic society like local governments and the national government on this. And what digital does for us is it can connect our students in Birmingham in real life challenges with our students in India. And that brings, again, not just a discipline perspective, but also a cultural perspective to bear, which again comes up with some really novel solutions to the problems that we're all facing. So STEAM is, it's not STEM, it does bring the A in with the arts and the creatives, and it's something we've been pioneering for quite a long time. And our STEAM House project is the sort of physical manifestation of that, where we bring these and curate and bring people together to look at things in a very different and novel way for innovation's sake.
I'd love you both to answer this question. Even better if. So if we looked ahead towards past trade barriers, tariffs, duties reduced, even past a free trade agreement, what is the opportunity that you kind of wake up thinking, gosh, if only? Take us into the future a few years. Rajay.
So I think what Maury was saying earlier about British universities and Indian universities being able to directly deliver within each other's countries is a huge opportunity. At the moment, obviously, we have to do that via local partners, but I think there is now, we're getting there, and there is categorically no doubt in my mind that we'll be there in a few years' time. And I fundamentally think that this is going to be the decade of collaboration. It's the decade of collaboration because of the free trade agreements and the other partnerships that we're talking about and that Britain is increasingly building with countries around the world post-Brexit. But it's also the decade of collaboration, I think, between different sectors of our economy. If you think about a partnership that we're currently leading, we're developing the Help to Grow program for the British government at the moment for Treasury and BEIS. And that's going to be supporting 30,000 business leaders with micro-credentials, with short courses in leadership and management, but also areas like digital. And we're delivering that with about 51 business schools. So you've got business schools coming together from across the UK, including Julian's at BCU. You've got private sector providers like Skilled, and then you've also got the British government kind of funding all those places and British businesses being able to be supported. So I think it's going to be an extraordinary decade for that kind of collaboration, people coming together, countries coming together, but different sectors coming together to resolve our shared challenges.
Thank you. What about you, Professor Julian Beer? Even better if.
So, yeah, I agree with all that. For me, if I look forward a couple of years, getting through the ambiguity that is currently in the Indian higher education policy would be very beneficial, I think, for both countries. We're exploring at the moment. We've got lots of lawyers involved, and we're also talking to the Indian, both state governments and the Indian national government about how we as an institution can do exactly what was just said, deliver actually in India in our own terms, not through a partner relationship. I think that would be a game changer, but it is both ways. We have to open our market and give access to some really great Indian institutions in the UK. So that free trade in education in a policy context just needs to be got through for me. That's the big game changer.
Thank you so much for joining me here this morning. Dr. Vinay Sahasrabuddha, Professor Julian Beer, and Rajay Naik.